Hi, greetings everyone. Hoovy and Queen here. Hope you have a good week so far. Well, our look at the 10th Doctor era now continues on with the penultimate episode of Series 4, The Stolen Earth. So, let's take a look at it. The Earth is teleported out of its spatial location. The 10th Doctor contacts the Shadow Proclamation, a universal police force to find Earth. The Doctor and Donna determine 27 missing planets, including Earth and others that they learned were lost, automatically recognized into a specific pattern and placed near each other. Donna mentions the disappearance of bees on contemporary Earth. This allows the Doctor to trace the planets to the Medusa Cascade, an inter-universal rift. A Dalek force, led by their creator Davros and the Red Supreme Dalek, quickly subjugate Earth despite humanity's fierce resistance. Davros, who was said to have perished during the Time War, was saved by Dalek Khan, who entered the conflict after performing an emergency temporal shift. The power needed to enter the Time War caused Khan to become precognitive at the cost of his sanity. The Doctor's former companions, who have only encountered the Daleks before, hide in various places in the UK. Martha, Captain Jack, and Sarah Jane are contacted by former Prime Minister Harriet Jones through a secret subwave network to contact the Doctor's companion in an emergency, although Rose is unable to contact the others after tracking down Donna's mother Sylvia and her grandfather Wilfred. They attempt to reach the Doctor by amplifying the subwave signal. Sarah Jane uses her supercomputer Mr. Smith's computing power, and Jack and his Torchwood team members Gwen and Ianto manipulate the spatial temporal rift at Cardiff. The Doctor, and consequently the Daleks, receive the transmission and trace the signal. The Daleks kill Harriet, and the Doctor is able to locate Earth in a temporarily desynchronized pocket universe. The Doctor travels into the pocket universe and receives transmitted images of his companions in the subwave signal. After Davros hijacks the signal and taunts the Doctor about his resurrection and imminent victory, the Doctor breaks communication and attempts to convene with his companions. The Doctor lands on the same street Rose is searching for him on and runs to embrace her, but is shot by a Dalek. Jack teleports to the street and promptly destroys the Dalek. In the Torchwood Hub, Gwen and Ianto fight off a Dalek that corners them. Sarah Jane sets off on her car to find the Doctor, but two Daleks find her and threaten to exterminate her. Jack helps Rose and Donna carry the Doctor into the TARDIS, where the Doctor begins to regenerate. Bum bum bum. So anyway, let's look at the production of this episode, beginning with the early development. The Stolen Earth and Journey's End are the culmination of all four series of Doctor Who since its revival in 2005, and showrunner Russell T Davies' work in reviving the show. Davies stated that the story arc for the fourth series comprised an element from every episode, whether it's a person, a phrase, a question, a planet, or a mystery that builds up to the grand finale. And the finale had been seeded for a long time, with small but vital references going all the way back to Series 1. Several of these thematic motifs are used as major plot points. The significance of disappearance of bees, the Medusa Cascade, and the Shadow Proclamation are explained in the episode. It is the first major crossover between Doctor Who and spin-off series Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures. Davies compared the crossover's conception to a typical child's imagination of a crossover between the Doctor Who and Star Wars universes. When you see the story, it will make so much sense that all these characters are involved. It's simply doing what kids do in their imaginations. They were experts at crossovers and would think nothing of having their Dalek toys battling Star Wars droids. Why not have all the factions of the Doctor Who universe going into battle together? The fourth series finale was first planned in early 2006. Its epic scale, and the threat of destruction of reality and large number of guest stars, was required to compensate for Doctor Who's reduced airtime in 2009, and in the imminent departure producers Davies, Julie Gardner, and Phil Collinson, beginning mid-2008 and early 2010. The episode's story was defined in early 2007, when Davies disseminated his summary of the fourth series to the production team. In brief, he described the finale, already titled The Stolen Earth, as the season finale. Earth is transported halfway across the universe as part of a Dalek plot. The episode features Martha, Captain Jack, Sarah Jane, Elton, and Rose. Jackie and Mickey? Also, can I have the Torchwood team just for a couple of days? The plus a futuristic space station complex where lots of alien races are gathering for conflicts. CGI, Bane, Krillitanes, Gelth, Isolus, everything we've got on the computer. Prosthetics, Jadun, Slitheen, the Grask, the Monks of Balhoun, Sisters of the Wicker Placemat, plus a new female alien, a wise old counselor, head of the space conference. Lots of gunfire and exterminations, and the biggest Dalek spaceship interior ever, more like a Dalek temple. Christ almighty! The skies over the Earth need to be changed to weird outer space vistas. Also visible in the sky, a huge Dalek ship interior, the size of a solar system. This will probably explode, like they do. And Davros. Don and Midshipman Alonzo Frame from The Runaway Bride and Voyage of the Dam, respectively, were also planned to make cameos in The Stolen Earth. Don was planned to appear before Catherine Tate agreed to reprise the lead role for the entire 4th series. And Frame was present as part of the Shadow Proclamation several drafts of the episode. Piper's appearance was almost cancelled when filming was originally scheduled during her honeymoon in January 2008. Freema Agyeman was similarly contracted to appear in the finale when she accepted the role of Martha Jones in 2006. Major concepts of the finale were already developed in March 2007. Davies explained the Medusa Cascade, first mentioned in dialogue between the Master and the Doctor and last of the Time Lords, to Radio Times and Doctor Who magazine journalist Benjamin Cook as just an area of space near an interuniversal rift which allowed Rose to return for the 4th series. He sent Cook another email several hours later that explained Dalekhan's role in the finale and Davros' resurrection from the Time War. The Doctor's regeneration was conceived in two separate parts in mid-2007. Davies outlined the concept of 2 Doctors in Journey's End in late April 2007, and using a regeneration to end the episode was originally conceived on July 12, 2007. Now, on to the writing. Davies started writing The Stolen Earth on December 10, 2007. He had spent the previous day writing Martha's appearance in New York City. He considered destroying the city, but decided against it. I spent today considering one tangible thing, whether to destroy New York in 412. That would be fun, wouldn't it? The idea came from the fact that all the Doctor's companions are found in England. I have a chance to expand on that, create a bigger world. But destroying New York has its problems. It leaves heavy repercussions for the rest of the Doctor Who history because there's no reset button. I worry about that. Series 5 is bound to have episodes set on modern-day Earth, and that might be hard to establish because it's a very wounded world. These emails do influence things, definitely, because I'm thinking no, destroying New York is a bad choice. Several days before he started writing the episode, he received a call from Bernard Cribbins, who proposed a scene in which his character, Wilfred Mott, would fire a paintball pellet at a Dalek's eye stalk. He proposed it as a reference to the Peter Cushing Doctor Who films that he starred in during the mid-1960s, and thought it would provide comic relief in between heavy exposition. The Dalek's response, evaporating the paintball and implying, "My vision is not impaired," was added after Cook reminded Davies it was obligatory to invert the recurring phrase when Dalek was blinded, "Vision impaired," and remove a weakness the Daleks had exhibited since their first appearance in the 1963-64 serial, The Daleks. Wilfred's reaction to Rose after she blew up the same Dalek, asking her if she wanted to swap weapons, was likewise added by Cribbins by way of an ad-lib during filming. Davies' first drafts of the Dalek invasion and the Shadow Proclamation were fundamentally different from their broadcast counterparts. Instead of hearing the Daleks' repeated cry of "Exterminate," Captain Jack and Sarah Jane reacted to the sight of Dalek saucers. One saucer would descend towards Whitehall, destroy Big Ben in transit, and assassinate the Prime Minister, Aubrey Fairchild. The Shadow Proclamation, defined in the script as an intergalactic police force that occupied a huge installation, metal sci-fi towers ranged across a series of linked asteroids hanging in space like a Roger Dean painting, originally featured every creature the Rivals show ever had, and a cameo by blonde Felvach Passamarte, Margaret Bain, Slitheen Alien, as a Jugathene, a Rexicorco Phalapatorian family toddler. Interesting. The number of monsters in the proclamation's bureaucratic nature would anchor the Doctor and cause Alonzo Frame, now employed as a shadow toddler, to aid him in filling out paperwork. Frame would be killed by the Daleks later in the story. A week after he had written the Shadow Proclamation scenes, Davies decided to rewrite the scenes heavily because of monetary and script constraints. Toby's cameo was replaced with a scene centered on the Chief Constable because he was unavailable for filming, much to Davies' disappointment. The Dalek invasion was also rewritten to the version broadcast after he decided a personal assassination of the Prime Minister was uncharacteristically diplomatic and recycled the Prime Minister's name for the next Doctor. He also expressed doubts about the Shadow Proclamation to Cook. He thought the Chief Constable was terribly stripped down, but admitted the Shadow Proclamation was a vital element of the plot. He decided to correct the faults in the Chief Constable by renaming her the Shadow Architect. I went back and fixed the Chief Constable. Her main problem was being a Chief Constable, so I decided that if she has to stay in lame sci-fi lanes, she can only work if she's a sci-fi creature. I've renamed her the Shadow Architect, made her albino and weird, hair scrubbed back into a black snood, red eyes solemn, swathed in black robes, and given her a slight mysticism, not Herman in a cave mysticism, just an albino freakiness, so she's sort of interesting now. Davies kept the Shadow Proclamation scene set before the introduction of the Shadow Architect until early February 2008. The scenes were linked by an argument between the Doctor and the Judoon. The Doctor would complain that Earth's disappearance should take priority, but the Judoon kept insisting the Doctor wait in a queue to report the disappearance. The Doctor would win the argument by overloading the Judoon's translator machines, because he could speak 6 million languages simultaneously, and order them to allow him to do the Shadow Architect immediately. Davies' submitted script was over the budget afforded for special effects, so he was required to cut the scene, even though Annette Badland had already recorded dialogue for a cameo. The rewritten and eventual broadcast scene had the TARDIS land directly in the Shadow Architect's office with 4 Judoon guards. Davies wrote former Prime Minister Harriet Jones into the script on December 22nd, before Wilton was approached about reprising her role, because Garner and Collinson wished for the character to have a satisfying and redemptive conclusion. On the denouement of her previous appearance in the Christmas Invasion, the character faced a vote of no confidence in Parliament after she ordered Torchwood to shoot down a fleeing Sycorax ship. Harry Jones' story arc thus formed into a tripartite storyline which consisted of an introduction and a message toward the Doctor and redemption, albeit at the cost of her life. Davies was aware that Wilton was very hard to book and restricted her appearance to one day's filming in one location, Harriet's home, to make negotiations easier. Had Wilton declined, Davies planned to replace her with either Donna, Mr. Cooper from Voyage of the Damned, or Walton from Love and Monsters. Wilton accepted unconditionally because she would do anything for Davies, and she wished to act in Phil Collison's last filming blog as producer. Her first appearance in Aliens of London was filmed in the first production block of the first series. Collison and Davies lamented the character's death. Collison couldn't bear the thought she's dead, and argued that she escaped death. And Davies generally stated in Doctor Who magazine issue 397 that when significant characters a writer creates have to die, it's a genuinely emotional time. Davies' script writing was affected by the development of a head cold and overrunning script constraints. He was annoyed that he had written dialogue he had been dying to write with a faint heart because he would have to cut it. Because he was behind schedule, he was forced to cancel plans to attend Piper's wedding, and almost canceled plans to celebrate the New Year with his boyfriend. These problems affected his first draft of the Doctor's conversation with his companions and encounter with Davros. He dismissed it as lame shit, which would waste license papers' money, and replaced it with a different version hours later. The conversation features all the Doctor's companions simultaneously talking to the Doctor. Excuse me. Tate, Tennant, and director Graham Harper made the creative decision to have the Doctor ignore any mention of the Daleks because they thought the Doctor's joviality in the scene would be otherwise inappropriate. He eventually finished the script at 1 a.m. on New Year's Eve. Cook reviewed the last pages of the script and suggested that the episode should air without a trailer. Davis agreed by noting that the BBC would never send out preview discs of the last episode, that any advertisements for Journey's End should just show Daleks and a repeat of "I'm regenerating," the Doctor's last line in the episode before the regeneration process starts. The episode was officially submitted on January 7, 2008, the preparation date for The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. Davis discussed the episode's climax in detail in the show's companion series Doctor Who Confidential. The climax, a Dalek race shooting the Doctor and his consequent regeneration, was written by Davies as a pastiche of romance fiction. He compared the reunion between Rose and the Doctor to the biggest romance the viewer has ever seen, a joke that seminal films such as Gone with the Wind should have ended with the Dalek shooting the male lead, and intensified the scene's emotional impact through Piper's cameos throughout the 4th series. Then described the Doctor's wounding as a moment of high emotion, lamented that the Doctor can't have a happy moment, especially with the cliffhanger needing to be written. The episode ended during the regeneration because Davies wanted to create the biggest, most exciting cliffhanger in Doctor Who, and to differentiate the series from previous regenerations, which were always completed at the end of serials. He considered its resolution, the regeneration process being halted by the Doctor, who siphoned the excess energy into his severed hand after his injuries were healed, legitimate because the hand was an important plot device in Journey's End's climax. The production team realized the halt to regeneration and creation of a new Doctor would create a debate amongst fans about whether one of the Doctor's 12 regenerations were used up. The production team originally declined to comment to avoid the debate. Davies later stated he believed that because the process wasn't completed, the Doctor did not use one of his regenerations. However, the 2013 Christmas special Time of the Doctor, which was the last regular story for the 11th Doctor, confirmed that this regeneration did indeed count, as the 10th Doctor was described as having vanity issues at the time. And now, on to the casting. The finale contained 19 principal cast members, 16 of whom appear in The Stolen Earth. As a consequence of the episode's crossover nature, the episode is the first appearance of Gareth David Lloyd as Yato Jones and Tommy Knight as Luke Smith in Doctor Who. Eve Miles, who previously played Gwyneth in The Unquiet Dead, makes her first appearance as the Torchwood female lead Gwen Cooper. The episode features many returning characters: Billie Piper, Prim Adjuman, Adoja Anto, John Barrowman, Nicholas Briggs, Elizabeth Sladen, and Penelope Wilton reprised their roles for The Stolen Earth. Evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins and comedian Paula Grady make cameo appearances on Torchwood's television screen. Cameos by celebrities such as Davina McCall, Derek Acora, and Anne Widdecombe have been a part of each penultimate episode since the show's revival. O'Grady was given a cameo after Davies heard that he was a fan of the show. Dawkins was added to the script by Davies when Cook suggested him to portray the elderly professor on a Newsnight-style television program discussing the new planets in the sky. Dawkins accepted because of his pre-existing association with Doctor Who. His wife Lala Lord portrayed the second incarnation of the Time Lady Romana between 1979 and 1981. Gary Milner was cast as the extra Scared Man after misreading the call sheet as Sacred Man and creating a priest-like portrayal of the character. Andrew Bullivant, who portrayed the Milkman in the episode's Cold Open, was given a role in the Sarah Jane Adventures serial The Temptation of Sarah Jane as a policeman because of his performance in The Stolen Earth. Michael Brenton later appeared in the audio play Lurkers at Sunlight Sedge. Kelly Hunter made a further appearance as a shadow architect in the opening of Series 9, The Magician's Apprentice. And now on to talking about Davros. The Stolen Earth is the first appearance of Davros since the 1988 serial Remembrance of the Daleks. Davies postponed Davros' return as he thought that Davros would dominate the Daleks, like plain robots, instead of the scheming geniuses that they are, and used the previous series to establish the Daleks' individual intelligence. Davros was kept as a contingency plan for several occasions. The character would have appeared in Parting the Ways if the Emperor Dalek prop is too expensive, and was even a possibility to reside in the titular prison in the Satan Pit. Davies wrote an origin story for Davros to clear up the character's convoluted backstory, which was eventually cut because of time restraints. Davies cast Julian Bleach to portray Davros after his performances in the Oliver Award-winning plays Sock-Headed Peter as the Ghost Maker in the Torchwood episode From Out of the Rain. To keep the return of Davros secret, the character was referred to as the Enemy, or Dave Ross, among the crew, and was kept anonymous on the shooting scripts as much as possible. However, the Radio Times called the secret one of the worst kept in television history. David Tennant liked Davros's hilarious megalomaniac attitude and the nostalgic feeling he created. Tennant's first memory of Doctor Who was Davros's debut in Genesis of the Daleks, and described him as being absolutely captivated by the extraordinary creature. To prepare for his role, Bleach reviewed Genesis of the Daleks, one of his favorite serials, to remind himself of Davros's voice. Bleach described his interpretation of Davros as that of a twisted megalomaniac, a mad scientist, and a misguided genius at the same time, and described the character as a whole, a cross between Hitler and Stephen Hawking, whose nihilistic desires made the character extraordinary. Bleach will later use the German leader's oratorical skills and his dogmatic speeches as a reference point. Davies, prosthetic designer Neil Gordon, costume designer Louise Page, and concept artist Peter McKinstry then met to discuss the design of Davros for the episode. They agreed to keep the visual design of Davros faithful to show that shown in his debut, Genesis of the Daleks. The only major change was to replace the hand destroyed in Revelation of the Daleks with the weaponized robotic version. McKinstry aimed to make Davros bigger and scary by updating the flimsy design of the classic series. We wanted to get away from the slightly filmy look of the earlier series, so I beefed Davros up, made him more sturdy. I also think that the reinvented Davros is unusual for the new Doctor Who because he's genuinely grotesque. Sometimes we've held back a bit with the ugliness of the monsters, but Davros is a very unpleasant-looking character, which makes his return all the more powerful. The team made 2 minor changes to the design. They removed Davros's microphone and completely redesigned Davros's headpiece. The team felt that the microphone was redundant because Davros did not speak in a whisper and needed something to make him more audible, and was originally intended to leave Bleach's voice unaltered in post-production. The decision to treat the voice was not made until late May 2008, and Gordon thought the original headpiece always seemed particularly weak for such a powerful character. Although he was informed that the production design for Genesis of the Daleks wanted the headpiece to resemble a medical brace, Gordon redesigned it to appear to be screwed directly into Davros's head. Page and Gordon contemporaneously collaborated on Davros's upper body. Page designed the leather tunic, which Gordon thought was a beautiful piece of costume, which echoes the classic design, and Gordon designed the rib cage. Davies explained the use of the leather tunic and the exposed rib cage in Doctor Who magazine issue 401. Seriously, Davros is meant to be horrific, and we've had so many other geniuses in sci-fi lately, like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, that I needed something to make everyone sit up and realize that this man is the king of horror, the original and the best. And he's also been through so many physical changes over the years. I wanted to add one of my own. I asked Louise to give him the new jacket buckles, because I wanted it to look a straitjacket. It just seemed to fit, because he's so insane. And now on to the Daleks. The Stolen Earth is the first appearance of the Daleks since the previous series' Evolution of the Daleks. Consequently, the prop controllers experienced difficulty readapting to their roles. Davies' inclusion of the Daleks as part of the crossover was intended to create a charged atmosphere for the protagonists. Jack was killed by the Daleks. Rose and Martha were present at two of their apparent extinctions, and Sarah was present at their creation. The animatronic of the Dalek mutant had to be recreated for the episode, because the previous prop that was used in Dalek and The Parting of the Ways was irreversibly damaged by water when the latter was filmed. The Stolen Earth features two new variants of the Daleks. The Supreme Dalek, colored red as an allusion to the Peter Cushing film Doctor Who and the Daleks, and the partially destroyed Dalek Khan was described in the shooting script as open, gutted, melted. Its harsh lines now curved and warped. In the middle of the warped, open shell sits a Dalek mutant. muted, tentacles stirring. This creature is more distorted than ever. Its skin bubbled, one blind eye staring out, voice ancient, sing-song, mad. Voice actor Nicholas Briggs adopted a different voice for each model. He adopted a grandiose voice for the Supreme Dalek to fit his perception of the character as egotistical. And he adopted a sing-song voice for Khan to reflect the character's insanity as a result of entering the Time War. Briggs justified his interpretation of Khan by explaining that Khan can't tell when he's happy or sad. His emphasis is very strange, and he finds things funny when things aren't funny, creating a soothsayer personality with an almost pure mind. An expanded theory was published in Briggs' interview with Doctor magazine in July 2008. My theory on Khan is that being sucked through the Time War and blown out the other end has kind of reverse-wired or random-wired his brain, so all his neurons are firing in constantly changing random insane ways. That's why he doesn't really know what's funny or serious. He just knows the truth and blurts it out in this odd cryptic way. I think he's frozen in a moment of excruciating ecstasy. When any emotion surges up inside of him, it makes him laugh, whether it's appropriate or not. Briggs' portrayal was well received by the production team. Graham Harper loved Khan's giggling and requested more on every take, and Davies described Khan as the creepiest Dalek yet. The finale also introduced minor changes to the Daleks. The characteristic Dalek plunger was replaced with a gear mechanism for scenes that featured Davros' guard. The mechanism is used to control Dalek machinery aboard Dalek flagship Crucible more efficiently, and the Dalek's eye stalk exhibits a minuscule twitch in scenes, a characteristic added by Graham Harper to make them appear cautious and on edge. And now on to filming. The Stolen Earth features the first external location shots of the Daleks since their revival in 2005, and the greatest proportion of filming undertaken at night since the show's revival. Apart from the pre-credit sequence set in suburban London, all the scenes set on Earth were filmed at night. The two-parter took approximately 6 weeks in 2008 to film. Regular filming began on February 18, 2008 and ended on March 29th. The first scene shot for The Stolen Earth, a news report that starred Lachelle Carlos Trinity Wells, was filmed on January 31, 2008 in a news studio at BBC Wales Broadcasting House. The first week of filming took place entirely at the show studios in Upper Bow, Rhondda Cynon Taff. Most of the scenes set in the Torchwood Hub and the TARDIS, including the regeneration scene, were filmed in the period. The filming schedule of the second and third week alternated between The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. 3 days were allocated to filming for The Stolen Earth. Scenes in Donna's house were filmed on February 26 at Nonfar Road, Cincoed, Cardiff. The Crucible Vault was set in the Upper Boat Studios was used on March 3rd, and scenes at the Shredder Proclamation were filmed at the School of Optometry at Cardiff University on March 8, 2008. Filming for the episode's outdoor scenes began in the afternoon of March 11th. The first outdoor scene filmed was the Cold Open at Westmount Crescent in Tontegg. 2 scenes were filmed in Pontypridd on March 12th. Exterior scenes of the noble household took place on Hawthorne Road, rather than the usual location of Cincoed, before relocating to Market Street in the town centre. To film the scenes where Rose encounters members of the public in the middle of a riot. Ted and Tate, meanwhile, filmed the trailer for the 4th series because they were not required on location. The Doctor and Rose's reunion was filmed on March 13th at Pennorth Town Centre, in front of 200 people. Consequently, the scene was leaked onto the internet and reported in the next day's edition of The Sun. Graham Harper insisted that the scene appear mystical because the characters' reunion was the most magical moment in the entire episode, and Ernie Vince, the director of photography for the show, compared the scene's feeling to the 1980 science fiction film Blade Runner. Exterior filming for the week finished in Brook Street and the adjoining Plantagenet Street in Riverside, Cardiff, for scenes where Daleks kidnap humans for experimentation and Wilf's attack on a Dalek, respectively. Scenes of the unit headquarters in Manhattan were filmed on the evenings of March 16th and March 19th. The first night, depicting the Dalek invasion, was filmed in a traffic control center on Junction 32 of the M4 motorway, with the actual Dalek invasion of the building filmed in 6 minutes at 5:30 a.m. the following morning. And the second night, depicting Martha's escape from unit, was filmed in a warehouse in Nantargua, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, owned by the National Museum Wales. Because of a traffic accident on the first night, the production team were prepared to postpone the shoot if needed. Penelope Wilton reprised her role as Harriet Jones to film a scene on March 18th in a cottage in Dynon Powys. Filming was stalled because of difficulty transporting the Dalek props into the cottage. Specifically, the raised patio doors made it difficult to balance and maneuver the props. The remainder of the fifth week was used to film Dalek-only scenes at Upper Boat Studios, when the vault set was redressed as the Crucible command deck. Scenes that featured Martha and Sarah in their houses were filmed alternately during the sixth week. The former in the previously regular location of Lower Courtrai Byville Road in Penarth, and the latter primarily at Upper Boat, ending on March 28th with scenes of Sarah and Luke in their attic. The last exterior scene filmed from the episode was recorded on March 25th in the regular Sarah Jane Adventures filming location of Clinton Road in Penarth, and consisted of external shots of Sarah's house and two Daleks accosting Sarah en route to meeting the Doctor. General filming for the episode and the two-parter closed with Dawkins and O'Grady's cameos. Dawkins was filmed at Upper Boat after shooting finished in the attic set, and O'Grady was filmed on March 31st alongside an episode of The Paul O'Grady Show at the London studios on the south bank of the River Thames. And now, finally, post-production. The episode was given to post-production team The Mill after filming concluded. The number of effects in the first draft was almost 3 times larger than broadcast. Consequently, several scenes, most notably all but one shot of the attack on the Valiant, were cut from the episode. The Mill created 2 notable effects for Stolen Earth: the invasion of New York City, using reconnaissance photos and establishing shots from the filming of Daleks in Manhattan to create a 2.5D shot of the city, and the planetary array at the Medusa Cascade, using a fully 3-dimensional model. Ray Gold concurrently composed the score for the episode. In conjunction with new cues composed for the 4th series, Gold used some of his earlier work, such as Rose and Harriet Jones's leitmotifs, the Ood's Song of Freedom from Planet of the Ood, and the appearance fanfare from Mr. Smith, later being played in diegesis. Gold discussed the new cues in the release of the 4th series soundtrack. The episode was allocated a 15-minute slot on BBC One, and the only cuts to the episode were minor pieces of dialogue. Post-synchronization of crowd dialogue took place on June 5th, and the episode's final mix took place on June 12, 2008. The same day the episode was officially announced by the BBC. Whew, that was a lot to talk about. So overall, I think that this episode is really dang good, and the fact that it's the first part of a 2-part series finale is awesome in my opinion. So overall, I give The Stolen Earth 5 out of 5 sonic screwdrivers. Well, hope you enjoyed that review, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it around, subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell icon to be notified about when I upload videos, and if you want to help support the channel, be sure to check out my Patreon page. Link, as always, is in the description below. And I'll see you all next time as we take a look at the final episode of Series 4, Journey's End. So, until then, this is Serene Queen saying, "Oh my giddy aunt! When I say run, run! A reverse polarity of neutron flow. Would you like a jelly baby? Fantastic! Allons-y! Geronimo!" Bow ties are cool, fezzes are cool, and Stetsons are cool.